Hello again. In the early years of cinema, particularly in the sort of 50s, 60s, early 70s, when there's doing a film with a computer on it, it always had a flashing panel. You've got to have a flashing panel of LEDs.
This one. Flash, 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 then wait for it. Nothing for a while. Here it comes. Double flash.
Now, there's various clips, and I'm going to show a couple of clips now of a couple of films and programs that had flashing LEDs for the computer panels in them. And most notably, just recently, if you watch the excellent channel Big Clive, Big Clive himself has been looking through some projects, recreating a flashing panel, just like this one, to mimic what the old computer panels looked like. But the thing is about Big Clive's excellent channel, there's a link down below, by the way, if you want to see it, is that it involves a lot of soldering of resistors, getting the circuit board made and everything. And I thought, you know, I could do better than that. Well, not better than that. No, I can't say better, because I'm not making this. This 16 by 16 WS2812 LED panel was bought from AliExpress, and I'll put a link down below for it. And it mimics one of the panels. You can use this for all sorts of things, but I've currently got it connected to an Arduino. This is an Arduino Uno, and I've written some code, and I've got a nice little pattern here, which mimics the computer. And I'm hoping the camera can pick it up, but the majority of the LEDs are blue, but there's some red ones in there, and there's some green ones in there, or it could be yellow, I'm not entirely sure, because I'm colourblind. But we'll have a look at the code again. We'll go through some of the steps that I took to actually write this, write the code, and how you can create your own mock computer panel. Before we do that, shall we just have a quick look at how to power this? Right, I've turned the power off, so let's have a quick look at this. This is a 16 by 16 LED grid, WS2812. These are 50/50, which is the 5mm by 5mm square LEDs. On the back, you've got three connections. You've got this one here, which I'm using connected here. This has got 5 volts ground and D in for data in. This one I'll come back to in a moment. And then this one here's got 5 volts ground and D out for data out. So data in, data out. And this can be daisy chained onto other panels as well. This one in the middle is for what's called power injection. And what power injection means is that if you've got a lot of colour, perhaps it's nice and bright and everything, what you don't want to be doing is pulling all the power through just the one input. So this is connected in the middle to allow power to power half of the circuit board here, and the power injection to power the other half, so you don't lose any of the power going across these LEDs. Otherwise you're going to try and pull all the power through these LEDs as the data and the power snakes through all the LEDs, and you don't want to do that, otherwise you'll end up burning them out. So this power injection here is to allow extra power to go to this panel. I haven't got it connected up because our mock computer isn't pulling that much power, and because it's flashing and a lot of LEDs are going to be off at the time, it's not going to pull much power through. So that's the power and the actual matrix itself. I've got it connected here through my bench power supply, and I'm just using a simple power supply at about 5 volts. On the Arduino, just unplug it. So on the Arduino, this is just a simple Arduino. I've got a couple of bent pins on it. There, look. Arduino Uno. These can be picked up for, I don't know, £5 or £6 from eBay. and on here I've got my signal cable, which is here, plugged into D3 or data 3, so that's the pin we're going to use as an output. And the other cable, this black cable here, is connected to the ground. One thing you've got to remember is that the ground of the Arduino or the controller that you're using has got to be the same ground as your LED panel. So that's what creates the loop or the information that can flow properly between the controller and the lights, by using the signal cable as well as the ground. It's got a simple link here, look, that's connected up, just joining a couple of cables up. So just ignore that because I forgot to put a bit of tape on it. In fact, I'll tell you what I'll do before I forget. Let's bung a bit of tape on there so it doesn't short out anything. There we go. Okay, so we've got this one is a signal, so that's coming from the Arduino and connected to this, which is going to the panel. And you've got this one, which is the ground, which is going into here, which is sharing the ground. So those two cables are ground with the panel as well. Okay, so that's how we connected up the controller, and that's also how we connected up the LEDs. So let's plug this back into the laptop, and you'll see that the lights flash and it'll boot up, and we'll stick some power on the bench power supply, and there we go, that's the LEDs flashing. So let's have a look at the code. Right, first of all we need to know what port our Arduino is plugged into. We can do this by going into Device Manager. We've got Device Manager up here, and you get to Device Manager by right clicking on the Windows icon, going into Device Manager, and once you're in there we can look at the ports, and there we go. So we've got the Arduino plugged in to COM7. Okay, I'm going to take some assumptions at the moment, and that assumption is that you know how to use the Arduino interface or download the Arduino software, and we're going to start off a new sketch or some new code. First of all, we just need to make sure we're using the Arduino Nano board. I keep calling it an Uno, it's not, it's a Nano because it's a small one, so we do that in here. And also, because this is a fairly cheap, I bought it from eBay board, it uses the old bootloader. So if yours is set for that one as by default and it's not working, change it to the old bootloader, and that seems to work on a lot of these Arduinos from eBay. Also, we're on COM7 as I've just shown you as well. So let's write some code. First of all, we need to make some space at the top, and we're going to use the command include because we're going to include a library, and the library is called FastLED.h. Now, if you're unsure if you've got the FastLED library, it's not a problem. You go to Tools, you go to Manage Libraries, and when it's finished building the libraries up, there we go, and you can type FastLED in there, press enter, and it'll do a search, and there it is. So the FastLED library, I've got 3.4.0 installed. The install button on mine is grayed out because I've already got it installed, but if you don't, then you just be able to install it from there. So we're going to reference the FastLED library. We now need to make some definitions, things that we're going to use within the code. So we're going to define the data pin, and remember on our Arduino board we plugged it into pin number 3, so we're going to set the data pin for number 3. We're going to define the LED type, and for the LED type we're going to be using WS2812s. You'll see in a moment where all these actually are starting to be used. So we're also going to define the colour order. Note that it's spelled the American way, not the British way. And for WS2812s, these are GRB, which is green, red, blue. That's the order that the LEDs are in. Okay, carrying on, we need to define the number of LEDs. And don't forget we're using a 16 by 16 matrix, so 16 times 16 is 256. And finally, we need to, if I can spell it right, define the brightness. Now brightness, the maximum brightness is 256. We're not going to be doing that. We're going to be doing just 100. Don't forget, the more brightness or the more LEDs, the more colours you use, you've got to be careful about the power. Okay, the last thing we've got to do is a command for the FastLED library. And what we're going to do is we're going to create a array or a store of the LEDs, so that we're going to be calling it LEDs, and we need to tell it how many it is, and we're using the define that we did above it. So we're going to tell it that it is in fact 256 by using the define variable that we've got. Okay, so that's got that setup done. So we've defined everything, we've got the library in it, and we've told it to create the array of LEDs for us. Now we need to do two things in the setup. We need to actually set up the all the parameters now for the FastLED library. So we do FastLED, and we're going to add our LEDs, and now we can start using some of the definitions. So we're going to tell it the LED type, we're going to tell it the data pin, we're going to tell it the colour order, and we also need to do a couple of other things as well. So we need to pass to it the LEDs, the number of LEDs, now this is a command that I tend to use. I don't know whether you should or shouldn't use it, but I set the correction now this is something that's built into FastLED library. It seems to, I think it does something with the colours. As I'm colourblind, I can't really tell, but I'm sure some more professional people can. Right, so that's got that set up. Next thing we need to do is to set the brightness. So FastLED and set brightness, and we're going to tell it the brightness variable that we set up before. Okay, so that's done so far, so good. Now the more exciting bit. We're now going to be in the main loop. As you know, the loop just goes and goes and goes and goes. When the Arduino is first switched on, it does that code there, then it does that code there, and then it just loops this code over and over again. So first thing we need to do then, as this is in a loop, we're going to go FastLED clear. So we're going to call the clear function, and then what that will do is it will clear all the LEDs so they're all blank. The command show, what that does is it just, anything that you've done previously, it will then output it all to the LED. So if you set up all the different colours and stuff, it won't do it immediately, it will do it after it's hit the show command. Right, so that's going to clear the LED, the matrix for us. Okay, next thing we need to do then, we're going to use a for loop or a for next loop. If you're like me, you're an old VB programmer, so we're going to use the store I to do our counting. So we start off at 0, and then until I is, or we keep going until I is less than the number of LEDs. So it'll just keep counting to 256, then reset again. And then we'll do I plus plus, so it counts them. It counts at 1 every time. Okay, so the next bit of code it will do within the loop, and we're going to use the array that we did, the LEDs, and we're going to use I, so it'll do 1, set the colour for that, then 2, set the colour for that, then 3, set the colour for that, etc. So we'll do CRGB. So remember, we use this for setting up the colours before, and we're going to use blue. So that will set all the LEDs because we're using the number of LEDs, which is here. So that will set all the LEDs to blue. Well, that's okay, but that's not flashing like a computer panel is. So let's just copy that line of code there, and this time, instead of the number of LEDs, what we're going to do is say 50. So this is only going to count 50 times and not the whole number of LEDs. And what we're going to do is, instead of saying number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4, which is what that will do in the loop, we're going to use a random command. So we're going to use the LEDs array, and then we're going to say that take a random number between 0 and the number of LEDs. So might do 1, 10, 20, 13, etc. And set that random LED as black. And what that will do is it'll make that sort of flashing sequence. So it'll look like the LEDs are randomly flashing away. Okay, so next thing we need to do is tell the FastLED library to output all that to the LEDs. We're going to add a small delay in it, just so the human eye can actually see what's going on. Right, okay, so that's the code done. Let's hit the big compile button, and oh, it wants me to show it, so we'll do LED computer 01. Right, okay, so let it compile. Okay, so we've missed a semicolon out there, so we needed to add that one in. We've missed a semicolon out there as well, so let's do that. Let's try that again. Okay, there's something else it doesn't like. Oh, let's try spelling random right. That's better. Let's do that again. Okay, there's still something it doesn't like. Ah, right, okay, I've seen what I've done there. It's not a spelling mistake. I've got a capital S and it should be a lowercase s. You see how that text has changed? So I had a capital and it should be lowercase, so that's why I didn't recognize it. So let's do that again. Okay, so that's compiled okay. Let's now upload that to the Arduino. So when you upload it, it does compile it again, and then it outputs it to the Arduino. So you'll see on the pattern on the Arduino it will freeze, which is done, and now it's receiving the code, and now it's working okay. So as you can see, the blue LEDs will then fill the whole grid up, which is this code here, and then once it's done that, it will take 50 random LEDs and change them to black, so it looks like it's flashing away. So that's okay, but there is a problem with this. Now to me, and I hope you can see it on the video, is it's flashing. You can actually tell really when it goes black. It's not a very nice, not a very clear, doesn't flow particularly right. It looks like it's flashing and could cause a problem. So let's see if we can improve the code a bit. What we can do is, instead of clearing the LEDs that we do here and filling it all with blue again, we can actually get rid of all this code. So let's get rid of this code, and I'll show you again the better way of doing that. So instead of what we're going to do, we're going to use a command that's built into the FastLED library called fill solid, and we can fill all the LEDs, the array of LEDs, telling it that the number we want to use is a maximum, and that is yes, so that's fill solid there we go, LEDs, that's better, and we're going to use the command CRGB, colour for red, green, blue, and we're going to fill them all with blue. So instead of all those lines of code that's going to manually loop through and change all the LEDs to blue, we're going to use this one command called fill solid, and that will fill all the LEDs with the colour blue. Now that's not necessarily going to improve the speed of the code, but it will definitely, if I remember to put a semicolon in, there we go, what it will do is it'll just instantly fill the LEDs with blue, and instead of that flashing, we should see it being a lot smoother. So it's just compiling now, outputting it to the Arduino, so let's just upload it now. Okay, so now it's uploading it to the Arduino. The lights are frozen, so there we go, and now you can see that it's a lot smoother. That initial flash of the black isn't there, and it actually looks a lot better now. It does look like a more stable, a more smoother computer simulation, if you like. We can also change the number of black LEDs that are in there. We've got 50 there at the moment. Let's change that to 80. Upload that again. And that'll just give a few more of the black LEDs. You may think that there's too many blue ones there. So let's just upload that. There we go. So the frozen LEDs, so it's receiving the code. There we go. So there's now 80 black LEDs and the rest are blue LEDs. There we go. Now then, we can improve the code a little bit further. So we've got our code working okay. We've got it filling all blue, we've got the random black ones, But it may be that this is okay, but let's have a bit of colour into this. I mean, these are colour LEDs, aren't they? So let's just copy this code here, and we can paste it underneath. And let's change this, say, to 20 LEDs, and we'll change that back to 50 LEDs, and we'll change the colour to red. So now we're going to have 50 black LEDs on the display, and we're going to have a random 20 red ones as well. And just for a bit of fun, just show you that you can have actually multiple lines in this. We'll have some green ones as well. So let's just verify that code, make sure it's okay. So it's just compiling the code now. That looks okay to me so far. Yep, that's worked okay. So let's upload it to the controller, the Arduino. Now hopefully this should be able to show on the mobile phone okay, because sometimes it can be a bit quick. So there we go. So now we've got red LEDs as well as green ones. Now that may be flashing a bit quick, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to change this to another 0 in it. So 2000 delay is a very long time, but what it does allow us to is just to have a look at the matrix in a more of a paused state. So there we go. So there we go. It is actually flashing away, but it's a lot slower, and you should be able to pick out, or I'm hoping you can on the camera, should be able to pick out, and we've got blue, red, and we've got green LEDs within the matrix. Okay, so let's change that back to 200. And there we go. So that is what I would class as a supercomputer panel, which Big Clive has done, but he's manually done the LEDs, soldered the LEDs in place, and manually made the board and put the resistors in place. But I've done it with this very, very cheap LED matrix that you can buy online at eBay, at Banggood, at AliExpress, and a very cheap Arduino and a bit of code. So I hope you like that. I hope you like what I do. If you do like what I do, please subscribe. Please give me a thumbs up, and I'll see you again soon. Thanks for watching.